Hello there, and welcome to the Scruffy Looking Nerdhers podcast. I'm your host, Tyler, bringing you news on all things nerd and geek related. This week, I have some Mortal Kombat 11 character news, SpiderMan MCU news, and much more. So, here we go. First things first, I will address the elephant in the room, the where the hell have you been for the last 2.5 months elephant. I'll address that one. So, I took a small sabbatical, I guess you could say, to just unplug and focus on myself. It was a much needed break, as I feel much healthier now, mentally, emotionally, and physically. I started exercising and eating a lot healthier, so I think that's definitely helped a lot as well. I've just been trying to find a good balance in everything in my life right now, and I feel that I'm in a good spot to continue on with this podcast again. I definitely missed it a lot, but like I said, now I'm back again. So I guess this is also a good time to go ahead and lay out like a roadmap for my podcast. So in the foreseeable future, it won't include previous stuff that I had planned on doing, like with the audio drama episodes and stuff like that, because it was just way too time consuming for just one person to do. But I won't give up on it just yet. It's just kind of taking a back seat for now. Maybe in the future I can be able to actually pay voice actors to do stuff and pay someone to do the audio and editing and all that for it. But as of now, it's just me. It's just going to take a back seat. So the podcast will just continue to be this current format of news and then my thoughts. And then I'll throw in like a history of episode about once a month. So that's kind of like the roadmap for the Scruffy Looking Nerdhers podcast. So in the last few months, I have started playing. I guess I'll just catch you up to speed. I started playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey and The Witcher 3, and that's pretty much it. I'm loving both games immensely, and it's one of those things where I'll play Odyssey for a while, and then I'll be like, oh man, I really want to play The Witcher 3 again, so I'll start playing The Witcher 3 again. Both games are extremely time consuming, but I'm having a blast. As I said earlier, I've been exercising. I've been going to CrossFit 3 times a week, and on the days that I don't go, I still try to do some sort of exercise, whether it's just push-ups and sit-ups and stuff like that. I have an ab circuit that I do. And like I said, I've kind of started drawing again and doing design work again as well. Ed, if you are listening, I'll be finishing up your stuff this weekend. And I've been spending a lot more time with my son and friends and with people that I care very deeply about. Let's see. I finished Stranger Things Season 3 and choked up on that last episode. I started and finished both Friends and the show New Girl. Both way better than I initially thought. I watched a bunch of true crime documentaries. I've seen Toy Story 4 and Spider-Man Far From Home. Toy Story 4 was good, but it seemed pretty much unnecessary for the franchise. I didn't feel like it didn't add a whole lot. Far From Home was spectacular. I may end up doing a mini review in next week's episode, possibly. But I guess that would be a perfect tie-in to the main subject of this episode, and it's something that everyone on the internet has been talking about, which is Spider-Man may not be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe anymore. What? I know. I still can't believe it either. So my source from this topic comes from Deadline. Like, there are honestly thousands upon thousands of articles covering this out there on the internet, but this is where I chose to get my information from. So Deadline reported that Marvel and Sony were unable to reach a deal on making future MCU films together with Spider-Man, which would mean that the Far From Home movie could be the last Spider-Man MCU entry, though Tom Holland could continue on with future movies. All we know is that Sony licensed out Spidey to appear in Marvel Studios' Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. And, in return, Sony were allowed to include MCU characters in their Spider-Man movies. That's why we saw Tony Stark, and Nick Fury, and Maria Hill. And the deal meant that Marvel Studios creative boss Kevin Feige served as producer on Sony's Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home movies, the same role he's filled for every film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Disney would collect some of the profits of the Spider-Man MCU films, but the majority would go to Sony in the previous deal. According to Deadline's report, though, Disney wanted a bigger financial cut of the standalone Spider-Man movies, and Sony refused the offer. It's still highly possible that the two companies can come to an agreement as to not affect future films, as comicbook.com has reported that there is still negotiations currently happening between the two companies. According to comicbook.com, negotiations are in fact ongoing. Sources close to the situation have informed us that two sides remain in talks, and the main sticking point happens to be producer credits Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige would receive on future Spidey-based properties. We were unable to confirm if Feige was aiming for producer credits on films like Morbius or Venom 2. And Sony has even gone to Twitter to kind of clear the air a bit and just saying that due to Kevin Feige's workload with Marvel was shifting him off of a property that they don't own the rights to. And it was kind of just like vague. It didn't really clear up any sort of answer as to whether or not Spidey will continue to be in the MCU. So we still don't know for sure. My thing is just, how is Sony going to explain away Tony Stark, Happy Hogan, S.H.I.E.L.D., the Avengers, all of that in future movies? I don't get it. Like, are they all just suddenly gone? You know, because it's tricky, because I see both sides to this whole thing. I get why Disney wants more of the share of the profits, as they're the ones fronting the bill and allowing Sony to use MCU characters. But Sony is also the ones with the rights to the property. So it's like, I see both sides. And I honestly feel like at this point, Disney just needs to give a blank check to Sony and tell them to fill it out and just purchase the rights back to Spider-Man. Because Sony and Marvel has built him up as a centerpiece moving forward in the MCU, and it would be criminal to not let that continue. Even the actors of the MCU, such as Jeremy Renner and Mark Ruffalo, have voiced their support on both sides coming to a common ground as to save Spidey for the MCU. The internet wasn't as kind as the actors about it. There's been calls for boycotting Sony Pictures in the future until they can hash out a deal with Marvel. There's already been a ton of petitions for Sony to sell the rights back to Marvel, yada, yada, yada. We all know petitions don't ever solve anything on the internet. But for me, it's more than just that. And some real talk here. I've been able to share these two MCU Spider-Man movies with my son. I've been able to share Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame appearances with my son in theater. Like, all of those in theater. I've been able to share those experiences with him. My son loves Spider-Man. Now, how am I supposed to explain to him that going forward, he's not going to be an Avenger anymore? I know this seems completely trivial, but those are the things that matter to the fans. Like, those are the kinds of moments that matter. And I know that I'm not the only one that sees it that way. But that's just kind of my thoughts and my take on that. And I think I had read right before recording this, which I didn't have time to research it. I just kind of saw a headline. But I guess like Kevin Feige was like, the Spider-Man 3 that I had planned was going to be Peter Parker focused. So it was going to really focus on Peter Parker. Obviously, the ending of Far From Home, which I won't spoil it in case people haven't heard it or seen it. But, the J. Jonah Jameson bit with Mysterio. And so, I mean, they definitely set it up to be a Peter Parker focused sequel, or the third installment. So I really hope we can see it, because I feel like this has like been, other than Into the Spider-Verse, like, but let's just say live action Spider-Man, this has been the best live action Spider-Man we've ever had, and we'll probably have for a long time. But speaking of Marvel, Sony, and Spider-Man, when Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix revealed their Avengers game coming out on consoles and PC and Google whatever at E3 this year, it was unclear whether it was connected to Marvel's Spider-Man on the PS4. And it still remains unclear, even though a statement has came out from the developer confirming the two games don't take place in the same universe, but maybe not. It came up when IGN brought up how Taskmaster was in both games, and as you know, in Marvel Spider-Man, Taskmaster seemingly refers to the events of Marvel's Avengers at one point. "This is our world," said a Crystal Dynamics developer when asked if the Taskmaster in Avengers is the same as the one in Insomniac's Spider-Man game. "This is the Avengers world. For us, we look at this and say, again, we have an amazing set of heroes, we have an amazing world, but this is an original story for the Avengers." So, the answer is yes, no, or maybe sometimes. Thanks, Crystal Dynamics, for that clear as mud answer. And and this is kind of the same thing, I don't get why they can't just have the universe be shared between the two games. Like, what is it with Sony and Marvel not being able to figure this shit out? I don't understand it. It's so easy. Just let it happen. Oh man, this is so frustrating. But to continue on this Marvel segue, this weekend is the D23 Expo, which is, if you're not aware, it's the Disney Expo, which is equivalent to a Disney Comic-Con, essentially. Unfortunately, this event isn't live streamed, and the tickets are sold out, so the best bet to get up-to-date info would be to keep an eye on Twitter. I would personally live tweet it, but alas, I won't be at the expo. So, the panels that I'm most looking forward to this year are, number one, the Disney Plus panel. I've been looking forward to seeing this baby in action since it was first announced a long time ago. And I think we'll see some user interface. I think they're going to have live demos available on the show floor and some announcements of what will officially be available at launch. Number two, the Marvel panel. This one is a no-brainer, obviously, because I'm a Marvel nerd, duh. And while I know Marvel kind of blew their load essentially at San Diego Comic-Con this year, Kevin Feige will likely have a surprise or two up his sleeve for D23. I'm not going to put it past him. And it'll be cool to get a little bit more information about the stuff coming out in the future. I'm really hoping we can get some more information on the Doctor Strange sequel, and possibly maybe see a little bit more information about Fantastic Four, because I know he kind of teased it a little bit at Comic-Con this year. Maybe we'll see a little bit more. Maybe. I hope. That'd be cool. Especially if the Spider-Man deal isn't going to work out. Now they can probably focus more on the Fantastic Four, maybe. I don't know. But number three, Star Wars. Also, duh, the main flagship for Disney Plus seems to be The Mandalorian, which is being helmed by Jon Favreau, who is one of my favorite screenwriters and directors. If you haven't seen the movie Chef, seriously go watch it. It is so good. It's such a great movie. But we will likely see a trailer released on Friday for The Mandalorian, so I'll probably be a blubbering mess once I finally get to watch it. And we may also see an official announcement of the Obi-Wan series with Ewan McGregor, where there's been some stuff online about it. We haven't had for sure in concrete, yes, this is happening, so maybe we'll actually get to see something like that. I don't see anything of like another trailer for Rise of the Skywalker. I don't think that's likely at this event. I think we'll probably see some behind the scenes stuff or some spotlights on some new characters for this specific installment. And I don't think we're going to see anything until probably the first official Monday Night Football game on ESPN. That's where I expect to see another trailer for Rise of the Skywalker. So moving on to other Star Wars news. So one of my favorite Twitter accounts that I've followed since creating this Twitter account for my podcast has been Phil Sostak, who is the creative art director for Lucasfilm. He always shares interesting finds from the archives or anecdotes of history of the creation of Star Wars. It's just always great stuff. But here recently, he has started what he calls Star Wars Mythbusters, which is him debunking common misinformation about Star Wars. And he'll post like screenshots of stuff, or he'll like take pictures of documents, or like stuff from like the old art files to back up his debunking. He's done the origin of Darth Vader's name, meaning Dark Father, the design of the AT-ATs, Boba Fett's Slave One ship, the origins of Chewie, the Luke, Leia, and Han love triangle, and a lot more. I seriously cannot recommend his Twitter account enough if you're even remotely, even just a moderate Star Wars fan. But his posts are always great, and he's a super nice guy. He like interacts with people like when they ask questions about stuff. But yeah, definitely check these out. They've been extremely insightful and just very interesting to see like the behind the scenes stuff about like there was some stuff on there about because Harrison Ford didn't sign a 3-movie deal like Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill did. So he was just movie to movie. And so they introduced Lando kind of as a way to, as like a fallback in case Harrison Ford decided, you know what, I don't want to do Return of the Jedi. And so that's why they kind of introduced Lando, so that way he could be a fallback for Return of the Jedi. And because Harrison Ford signed on for the Return of the Jedi, and they still had Billy D. Williams, they kind of just like combined some storylines. So I don't know, it was a super interesting read that he posted. Like I said, go check it out. His name is Phil Sostak. Last name is spelled Szostak. Anyway, go check it out. Super cool. Moving on to gaming news. So Mortal Kombat 11 is shaping up to be an okay to semi-great installment in the series. You know, they have Ronda Rousey on there. They had some like DJ dude that do voice acting for Sub-Zero, and it was terrible. But there was a leak a while back that had supposed characters for DLC, and this newest announcement seems to confirm some of it. It was announced that Shang Tsung and Nightwolf would be in it a while ago, but Arnold's Terminator T-800 drops on October 8th, Sindel on November 26th, Joker from DC's Batman on January 28th, and Todd McFarlane's Spawn on March 17th. And after the announcement, the internet was less than kind about the Joker's appearance in Mortal Kombat 11. Some comparing his appearance to that of the porn parody Joker, or to a Party City costume version, or that he looks like any of the edgelord milady dudes on the internet after Ledger's Joker dropped in The Dark Knight. And to be honest, it doesn't look good. Like, it does look pretty shitty. But yeah, really bad. I'll post a link to the video announcement. It's a YouTube video. I'll post a link to it in the doobly-doo in the show notes. So, lastly, 2 quick announcements. Number 1, Fez is free on the Epic Games Store. Seriously, if you have never played Fez, I highly recommend you get this. It's free, so, I mean, you're out nothing. And it's quite possibly my personal favorite indie game of all time. I remember when it came out, it was fun, but it was super buggy, and if you've seen Indie Game, the movie, the documentary, it follows the guy that created Fez, the 2 guys that created Super Meat Boy, the guy that created Limbo. Limbo, I believe. Or was it Braid? I can't remember. It was one of them. But yeah, the guy that created Fez, put in all this work. He got shafted by his co-partner in the game studio and was like stressed out, and he was running into bugs because he was more worried about he couldn't work on the game as much as he wanted to because he had to worry about the other stuff that his partner was supposed to be doing. And anyway, and I felt bad for the guy because there was at one point, like after the game came out, people were just like, tweeting at him like, hey, fix your game, fix your effing game, like your game sucks, your game's broken. And I was one of those people, and I felt bad after watching the documentary, like really bad. And because I realized, this guy's going through a lot, and like he was having family problems, like his parents were having health problems, and it was just a lot. And after replaying it again, after seeing Indie Game the movie, I had much more respect for the game. It was patched, it was fixed, it worked, and I still felt bad for how I acted towards that guy. But I highly recommend checking out. Like I said, it's free on the Epic Games Store. Go check it out. And finally, this week, Wizards of the Coast announced a new campaign sourcebook titled Eberron Rising from the Last War, which is the campaign setting created by Keith Baker, whom I'm hoping to be able to sit down with for a quick interview at Game Expo this October. So keep an eye out for that. It's currently up on pre-order right now, and on Amazon it's only $29.97, which is 40% off, with the shipping to be around November 19th. And I've been reading up on the Eberron setting recently, like I said, because Keith Baker is going to be at Game Expo, and I'm honestly loving everything about it, so this will definitely be a pickup for me. I've kind of recently went on, not really a buying spree per se, but I was able to get a really good deal on the Stranger Things D&D starter set, and I was able to get a hold of the Essentials kit, the new one that just came out, and I'm probably going to start that with my son, because he's kind of getting into D&D, and I think it would be good to help him with like math skills and even just having fun. So I'm definitely going to be starting with that. But yeah, so I'm definitely going to be getting the Eberron campaign setting. Even if I don't ever really plan on running an Eberron campaign, I think having that would just be nice. The artwork was fantastic, and they even had a limited edition one that also looked really, really awesome. And I don't know if I want to get that one or not. But yeah, so new campaign setting coming out this November. Go check it out. So this concludes this episode of the Scruffy Looking Nerders podcast. Seriously, guys, thank you so much for your support. Like I said, I know I took that little break, but I will be continuing on with this podcast again. So please, if you like what you heard, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, review, all that good stuff, and please share with your friends, your family, your coworkers. If you're at a GameStop or a game store, like tell people there. I'm on iTunes, on Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, YouTube. There's just so many ways to listen, and I'm still trying to find other ways for people to listen as well. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at SLNH Podcast, and be sure to pick up some merch. There is a link in the doobly-doo for that. I just came out with a D&D themed shirt. Says Scruffy Looking and Nerdhers Podcast. Go check it out. And thank you so much for your reviews and comments. Seriously, I know like people in podcasts will say reviews don't matter, but they matter to me because it lets me know that you guys care and you guys enjoy it, and it lets other people who come across it say, these people like it, so I'll give it a try. So it helps the podcast grow and get better in that aspect. So everyone, this is Tyler from the Scruffy Looking Nerdhers podcast signing off, and Nerd Herders, assemble!